Welcome to The Vibrant Couple. My name is Valdo Lallemand. I'm a relationship coach. I created The Vibrant Couple to further my purpose of liberating love through connection and playfulness. This is our series on emotional intelligence. Over the last 2 months, I have published 15 videos to help you understand what emotional intelligence is and how to grow it. Last week I made a video on interpretations, and this week I'm diving deeper and we're going to look at misinterpretations. We're going to start with a recap of video 15 on interpretations. Here is the link if you have not watched it yet. I highly recommend you do so. Then we are going to talk about the ladder of inference, and then we're going to talk about why it is important to clear misinterpretations as quickly as possible. Let's start with a recap of video 15 on interpretations. I presented 3 metrics to look at interpretations and better understand them in your couple. The first one is on toxicity. I will come back to it in a little bit. The second is on consciousness. How conscious are you of the interpretations that you are making? So if you are aware, if you are conscious of the interpretations you are making, you can tell the other person, hey, this is how I see you. This is how I'm making meaning. I'm making sense of you. And if you have no awareness, no consciousness, then this is who you are, is typically what comes out of people's mouth when they talk about others. And you can imagine that in a couple, that can lead very quickly to dysfunction. So now I want to come back to toxicity. So if you imagine that on the right side where we have 0%, you have no resentment built in towards someone, you are much more likely to interpret them correctly. If on the other hand you have lots of built-up resentment, then it is very likely that your relationship becomes toxic and you easily make judgments and even condemnations of others. And the third metric is awareness of the process as a couple. So basically, we project all the time, we interpret all the time. This is normal human stuff. The difference between the unconscious couple and the conscious couple is the conscious couple has some view that they are making interpretations, they are making projections all the time, and they are willing to be curious, to be in inquiry about these. The ladder of inference was presented by Chris Argyris, who was a Yale and Harvard professor around 1990, to help us understand how we can better relate to each other. The model states that we have our feet in reality, but very quickly we are very selective about what data we choose to somehow compute to make sense of others in our relationships. And as a result, we form interpretations. So in a sense, interpretations are the seed of what is coming next in our meaning making, which are assumptions, conclusions, and beliefs. You can see that from interpretations to assumptions to conclusions to beliefs, it becomes more and more solidified. So this is why the interpretation is kind of like the seed. And then from these beliefs, we basically act, and that creates a new set of data that we then filter, and then the loop continues. Assumptions, conclusions, and beliefs are often in the forms of feelings we have towards each other and of stories we make of the other. For example, if you have a positive view of your wife, you're going to see all the positive things that she does, and you're not going to sweat the small stuff. On the other hand, if you have a negative view, let's say of your husband, then you're going to see all that he does, that how does he do that? Why does he do that? And then you get more and more frustrated as we go. So we have these assumptions, these beliefs about others. We see others acting, And their actions basically reinforce the beliefs. They reinforce the assumptions we are making. They reinforce the interpretations we are making. They reinforce the selectedness of the data we're looking at. For example, if you believe he's a jerk, why would you be looking for the good things that he's doing? Because he's a jerk, and you only look for whatever makes him more of a jerk. I wish we were to go back to reality, but very few of us are able to see data without all the filters we have. Okay, so now I'm done geeking on the ladder of inference. What do we do about it in a couple? I assume by now that there is no way back to not knowing about interpretations. And so the question is not whether we interpret or not. The question is whether we interpret correctly or not. In a conscious couple that has a practice of sharing interpretations with each other, misinterpretations can become very powerful tools because they can help us see all the selectivity of the reality that I talked about earlier, that is basically linked to our trauma and our subconscious programming. And in surfacing those, we can heal them, we can change them in a way that is mutually beneficial versus the fights that so many couples have. I believe it is good to acknowledge that interpretations and misinterpretation reinforce loops. So let's say that we make a positive interpretation of our partner, then we tend to reinforce a positive loop. When we do misinterpretations, we tend to reinforce negative loops. Because if we believe that our partner never cleans the garage because we interpret that somehow they are self-centered, then we are likely to only see and reinforce that loop of them not cleaning the garage. So in here, I wrote plus and minus as orientations of the loop. I want to make clear that the idea here is to not make a judgment that all positive is good and all negative is good. For example, a couple that is highly codependent may only form positive interpretations of each other. But behind that, there is a lot of anxiety. There is a lot of things that neither want to see. On the other hand, misinterpretations and negative loops are not necessarily bad from the sense that they can be something temporary that of course bring conflicts, but looking at that conflict, working through it, helps us go through trauma, helps us basically change deep subconscious programming that we have received very early on in our childhood. If you've watched the video so far, I'm hoping by now that you have clarity that debunking misinterpretations ASAP is really important for the happiness of a couple. This is not as easy as it looks. First, it is difficult to be vulnerable. It can bring a high level of discomfort. Second, some of us have built-in defenses against interpretations. For example, if as a child, one of your parents consistently somehow came into your territory and made judgments about you, or made misinterpretations about who you were, what you wanted, or even worse, coerced you, manipulated you into becoming who you didn't want to be, then it is possible that you have built a defense mechanism against interpretations. And last but not least, misinterpretations often reveal our trauma, reveal that there is something that is unhealed, unresolved. I believe that a couple is one of the best places to heal our trauma. So basically, we find a mate that we are compatible enough with, and we learn over time to relate in a way that we form a deeper and deeper partnership. All of that is through misinterpretations and more misinterpretations and conflict and more conflict. There is no way around that. However, there is a tipping point in which we can learn to work through conflict much quicker. We can learn to work through misinterpretations much quicker because we know that fundamentally our partner has our back. If this video inspired you to increase your emotional intelligence, both personally and as a couple, please hit the like button below and subscribe so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. And please pass along to all you believe would benefit. I look forward to seeing you very soon.